Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a really cool review for you from a brand spanking new brand called TRIBUS. Now, although the brand itself are new, the family behind it are far from it. This London-based, Swiss-made microbrand is basically was founded by Christopher Ward's three sons, three hence Tribus. So basically, Christopher Ward's sons, Jonathon, James, and Jake Ward, founded this cool new brand. And basically, they use they use Swiss made cases, which is something that not every Swiss made brand does. And for those of you that have been either following the channel or just a little bit more into watches, you'll understand that, yeah, I mean, typically you can bear the Swiss made moniker as long as 60% of the value is from Switzerland and it has a Swiss made movement and the final assembly is done in Switzerland. So, most cases are actually manufactured outside of Switzerland, but not here. So those are actually like some of their key characteristics. So if you could distill this into two pieces, Swiss made cases and COSC certified movements, which are two very nice things to kind of build your brand around. In terms of the type of watch, I'd consider this an everyday dress watch. Some key characteristics and design when you're looking for something that you can wear every day, but on the dressier side, of course, you're going to want that clean, classic, minimalist design, something that's sensibly sized. And I think this particular watch, the Tri-01, really hits that. This is the small second COSC steel on black model. And the way they put it is basically its simplicity in its finest Swiss form, paying homage to the elegance of the 40s and 50s dress watches with its retro temporary style. The Tri-01 small second COSC features a chronometer certified movement inside its Swiss made case. Now this particular watch will cost $1269.17, which isn't bad for a Swiss made COSC certified chronometer. That's VAT excluded, so that is shipped to the US. The team at Tribus actually reached out to me, so this is just a loaner. But, I keep it I only review what I like. So if you're looking for a bunch of bad news on this, you came to the wrong channel because I think this is a pretty sweet piece. But as that's me coming as a big fan, and I have something like 120 watches, so I experience and own a lot of watches thanks to the channel. Kind of forcing me to continue to be bringing watches in, and I gotta say this thing is really excellently done, and that's something that doesn't necessarily come across in just pictures. So I'm looking forward to showing you guys the level of brushing that you're gonna see here is really immaculate and just flat out a luxury level. The high polished bevels also very sharp and crisp. So with that said, let's zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, a little bit of a longer intro there. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of a story to tell here. So, interesting things to note. This is the first, kind of Christopher Ward associated watch that doesn't bear his name. So for all of you that were like, oh man, I love Christopher Ward watches, but I don't want to put somebody's name on my... Okay, there's no name here. This is actually a really well-balanced, very symmetrical piece. And that's what I find killer about it. It is just so legible, and the details and the nuances in this dial layout and in the way that this beautifully domed sapphire play with that dial at its furthest reaches there give you a little bit of visual play, that beautiful satin finish there, just capturing light in different ways. I really dig it. And it does a lot of things that we asked for. It's a chronometer, so that's great. It's also a no date with no ghost crown position, and it's a screw down crown. So it's just like so many things that we've been asking for. It's also 15 atmospheres or 150 meters water resistance. So it just has a lot. Oh, also, you get a display case back. I mean, it's not the sexiest movement, of course. It's a Sellita SW261 that's been chronometer certified, but it's a mechanical movement that you can look at, right? And people like that. I like that. And yeah, there's nothing weird about the placement of the logo, nothing controversial about it. It's just hits that sweet spot. But one thing I really want to show you guys is look at this fit. Look at the, let me wipe it off real quick. Holy cow. Look at the brushing. Get it to focus there. Okay, look at this brushing on this case side of this piece. Really look at it. Typically, when you see brushing on the side of the case of a watch, it'll seem like a long stroke or a push that basically is dragged across, and that is by design. When it comes to the brushing, you get that nice uniform look, but as you can see here, the grain on the brushing is extremely fine. This, oh my gosh, it just oozes quality. And it's just one of those little nuanced things that you won't see in pictures. And that's just the brushing. That's not looking at how sharp and crisp that. Look at that high polished bevel. There it is with the light. Here it is with the darkness. Look at the crisp transition between the brushed finish and the polished. Oh man, that is crisp. Then look at that, that fixed bezel and how the crystal just rises out of it in such a unique and clean way. It just has a certain flow to it that I really, really like. And then take a look at this. I mean, I'm not even getting into the specs yet, guys, but look at the high polished finish on this buckle. Fully milled. Just done flat out beautifully. So the fit and finish, it's excellent, guys. I mean, yes, it's not a cheap watch, $1,200, but it's a chronometer. It's Swiss made, Swiss case, and not just, it's not just stamped on there. It is Swiss made in a very Swiss way. You get the box dome sapphire, you get inner and outer AR coating, but it's not adding any weird color hues or anything like that. It's just really well executed, and that dial is extremely legible because of that execution. Also, the dial itself is really pushed out, but then it has that outer ring. You're getting the different numerals across the way, and it has a way of just kind of making it a little bit compact, yet expansive at the same time. So I'm really digging it. You do also have that signed crown. I should probably get to the spec sheet on this one. So 41 millimeters in diameter, which for a watch like this probably feels a little large. But then when you kind of compare it to something that, like a deck watch style, or more on the kind of casual everyday style, 41 millimeters is absolutely fine, especially when it's something that is done this well, this legible, this balanced and symmetrical. It's just, man, I'm digging it, guys. So 41 millimeters in diameter. It's only 12.09 millimeters thick. That very thin mid case with just a touch of case back that comes off, and then a nice hearty another portion when it comes to the bezel and crystal coming off of it. It still only comes to 12.09 millimeters, which is nuts. Lug to lug, it's 50 and a half, so 50.5 millimeters lug to lug. It's 316L stainless steel. It is of course brushed with those high polished bevels. Very, very highly executed, guys. The crown is signed and screw down, which is great. It has a lovely action to it, I have to say. The threading on there also feels quite buttery smooth when you are screwing down the crown. The movement, again, nothing crazy. It is COSC certified, but in terms of kind of the grade and the finish, there's nothing really special. It's quite pedestrian from that standpoint, but I think it really suits kind of the minimalist design here. Like, I almost think Yeah, I mean, I guess because the brushing level is so good, it would have been nice to see some perlage, some blued screws, whatnot on here. But if I had to choose between a movement that was dressed up in high grade that wasn't COSC certified, or one that was very sedate and kind of base looking, but was COSC certified, I'm going to choose the better timekeeper 9 times out of 10. So I guess I can't get too mad at that, just to keep it real. The timing tolerances, of course, for something that's chronometer certified is going to be -4 plus 6 seconds a day. So somewhere within that range. I haven't been wearing this one because it's a loaner. Really just kind of wearing it to see how it feels, but not necessarily wearing it out. So I haven't been able to test the timing or anything like that. But if it says chronometer on there, the good news is you actually have a piece of paper to back that up. So I'm not too worried about it. Now, the case back is display, like I mentioned, and it does have some nice clean etching around that just mentioned some of the tech specs there. Very nicely done. The dial itself is this really nice, clean, matte black. And again, I think a lot of people kind of underestimate matte black, but because of the matte finish there, guys, it just holds light in different ways, and it can kind of turn more of a charcoal. And then you have the dimensionality. Is that a word? I don't know. But basically that sub-seconds counter there, that register, is just so beautiful and adds so much just depth and a 3D effect to it, which I really, really enjoy. It does have a mixture of applied and printed indices. The polished and faceted indexes are really quite nice. It's a little bit hard to tell on camera, of course, because they are so highly done that they're going to reflect a lot of black. In this case, the black off of the lens of the camera, and then the black off of kind of the background in a dark room with just 2 studio lights on either side. So you might not be able to catch them, but I'll try to twist and turn this just so you can see those little fine details that are really, really nice. Now, in terms of the lume on here, although there's not a ton of lume, it's very good lume. It's X1 GLC1 Superluminova. Yes, it's the best. It's the best, and it's white. It shines very brightly green, and it has staying power. It's the higher grade, newer formulas, so really nice from that standpoint. You get 20mm lugs, which is great and very versatile in terms of this being, a potential strap monster. You do get this nicely done Italian leather strap. So although the case is Swiss made and the movement's Swiss made, and it's it's assembled and whatnot and tested and COSC certified in Switzerland, it does have a nice Italian leather strap, which is great. It does have a decent taper on it from 20 down to 18mm. It also features quick release spring bars, so you can swap it out quite easily. And yeah, that cyan buckle is just, look at that. It is tasty. Look at the way just the light just mirror-like on this thing, even on the underside. You get the fully milled buckle. It has some nice little cutouts there to help it lay really beautifully on the wrist. So very nice. Let's actually go ahead, get this on wrist, and see how it wears. All right, guys, as you can see on my 7¼ inch wrist, this thing wears really well. Get a little bit more arm in there, and it won't seem too big. I know some of you might be thinking, hey, man, if this thing was like a 36, 37, 38, that would be amazing. And I can't argue with that. I think this would be a great watch as well. But at the 41mm size, I have to say, it does keep the watch feeling a little bit more versatile, a little bit more casual, something that you could wear with shorts, honestly, if you needed to. And it wouldn't feel undersized or, it's not trying to be super vintage, although it does have a very classic aesthetic. I think the scale does tend to keep it a little bit more modern and slightly more versatile and sporty, especially considering the fact that, yes, it does have quite a bit of water resistance, which I'm very impressed by. 15 atmospheres or 150 meters with a screw down crown, with no date and no ghost crown position. I mean, there's just a lot of the things that we ask for as watch geeks they delivered. Good timing, display case back, all that stuff. It's there for you. Italian leather strap, beautifully balanced dial. They just hit a lot of the right marks here, and I gotta say, it's impressive. And although while a lot of other brands are going way down the retro vintage rabbit hole and making smaller watches, I gotta say, every once in a while you put something on and it just wears really well. On paper, I would have been like 41 millimeters. Watch like that might feel a little bit big, but then again, hey, Tudor sells a ton of Black Bay 41s. The Oris Big Crown Pro Pilot, they sell a lot of 41s as well. So this is by no means an oversized piece. I think thematically it really fits and suits the look of the watch. And of course, again, if you get down to just the execution, look at the bevels, the brushing. It's just, this thing is done, boys. This is done right, done well. I hope you can see it. Really just hope you guys can catch the way the light. It's one of those things, it's really a sight to see. Something so simple, not flashy, no special textures or anything like that. It's just done well for what it is actually trying to do. It's not trying to be everything, but what it is doing, it's doing damn good. So with that said, let's actually get this piece off, do a little bit of a loom shot and some low light transitioning, as well as cover some closing thoughts. Okay, we'll go ahead and hit the lights here. So as you can see, yes, this is very clearly meant to be a watch on the dressier side. So no, it's not a big loom beast, but you can get an idea of what time it is in the dark. One thing I do also like to do here is get work in some low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, and maybe underneath the shade of a tree, or just spending time in your favorite automobile. So it's good to see how the watch will render in less than optimal lighting. And then even in some harsher lighting situations where you can get the really high contrast lighting here, which typically will expose any type of defects or imperfections. But you can see this thing really shines. Even in its satin brushing, it shines. There is a certain glow to it in the way that it holds, which is really impressive. It's a black dial watch and it has a shine to it. It is matte, but it holds light in certain ways. Its brushing is done to such a high level of execution that it just, even from the non-luminous side, look how high contrast and bright the indices are. And yeah, it can get darker and whatnot, but at the same time, it just holds the light. So there's the loom, but if you get a little bit of light on there, it's going to hold it. You can see what time it is still, right? You can see the numerals because of that high contrast. And they're not weighted very heavily. They're very nice, thin, balanced. Man, they have a look to them, guys. I'm digging this. So let's go ahead and move on to the closing thoughts. It definitely wears well on the wrist, right? Bold, but not quite oversized or bulky. I think on paper, you're going to think, oh man, that's just a little bit too big for a dress watch. But guys, I got to say, if you have a bigger wrist, you're going to enjoy this one. I have a 7¼ inch wrist. It's on the larger side of medium sized. And I think this is absolutely a fine piece. I think one of the things that helps it wear a little bit smaller, of course, is that sub-seconds register there versus it being a central seconds. I think that does help kind of shrink the watch down. Also, I think kind of the general shape of the dial, the softness, that outer kind of track slowly pushing everything a little bit more centered, then having the numerals centered inside of that, and then having basically the balance of that's at the 6 o'clock with the with that center, basically, so not center but seconds dial register, and then also having almost an equally sized TRIBUS logo there, which I think looks really great, and also again very, very clean and symmetrical, which who doesn't enjoy that in a watch? It's something that we literally beg other brands to do, including some that have award in their name. So yeah, this is cool. Now, in terms of model variants, definitely check the link in the description, because there are tons of dial color and strap options. And when I say tons, I mean there are some wild color options, guys. They're not afraid of color here at TRIBUS. So check it out, see which ones they have. And the straps, they're very nicely done, but there are other options. You can go with like browns and stuff instead of the blacks, but I think the black looks really wonderful. In terms of comparable models, honestly, it's tough to find competition and kind of contemporaries that I can think of that offer the water resistance plus the refinement plus the versatility. I can think of watches that are similar in that they might have a COSC movement and have a similar size, even some that have that kind of small seconds complication. But yeah, this is just a sweet watch. It's very special in that it's not trying so hard. It just, what it does the hell out of it. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the weird part for me to try to convey to you guys. Bottom line, guys, the Ward brothers have swung for the fences, and I think they've hit a home run in my book with this piece. The Trio 1 is definitely an epic kind of first venture into the space. I'm looking forward to seeing what else they can bring to the table. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do it like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.